Premier Li Keqiang is kicking off his official visit to Europe in Germany, where he will voice support for an open economy, free trade and investment, and working towards global and regional peace and stability. However, there remain concerns on both sides about how China and Germany, as well as the EU as a whole, can come to agreements that will optimize their mutual relationships. To discuss these and other issues, today I'm very happy to be joined in the Beijing studio by Charles Liu, founder of How Capital, FENG ZHONGPING, Vice President of the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations. We shall also speak to Dr. Chen Han, Co-Chief Executive Officer of China-Europe International Exchange via satellite. That's our topic. This is Dialogue. I'm Yang Ray.
Chinese Premier Li Keqiang first went to Germany in 2013. At the time, Germany was China's biggest European partner in trade, investment and technological cooperation. Official data show bilateral trade between the two countries reached nearly $162 billion in 2013. Li Keqiang went to Germany again a year later. A visit German Chancellor Angela Merkel reciprocated. During Merkel's visit, a $13 billion investment quota was granted to Germany. Among the agreements signed during that visit was China's purchase of helicopters from Germany and the establishment of a German car manufacturing base in China. During Li Keqiang's trip to Germany, the two countries inked deals totaling some $18 billion. 2015 was designated the Year of China-Germany Innovation Cooperation. Chancellor Merkel went to China for the 8th time, and during that trip, 13 cooperation agreements were made, including a deal for China to buy 130 aircraft from Airbus. It was one of the largest orders China has ever placed for the European aviation giant. Merkel also showed her interest in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the China-proposed Belt and Road Initiative. And she promised to support the Chinese RMB's inclusion in the International Monetary Fund's special drawing rights currency basket. Last year, China launched its Made in China 2025 program, which is patterned after Germany's Industry 4.0. During Merkel's 9th visit to China, the two sides pledged to link both programs to promote entrepreneurship and innovation. The visit won Merkel results in 96 agreements worth some $15 billion. On Wednesday, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang arrived in Germany for his latest visit to the country as part of the Chinese plan to strengthen China-EU relations.
Welcome to Dialogue, gentlemen. What do you think are the major issues on the agenda of Premier Li Keqiang during his official visit to Angela Merkel? By the way, this is the first of its kind during the Trump presidency.
Yes, exactly. Your point is perfectly right, because this is immediately 2 or 3 days after Donald Trump's visit to Europe with the G7 and so on. I think the ramifications of this session is already beginning to be felt with what Angela Merkel said, how Europe must depend on itself and can no longer depend on others, meaning the UK and the US. That's one side, but the other side, which is very significant, is the major changes in the global economic order, making China to be much more significant in the global players list, and they will have to address many issues that reality is bringing about.
What do you think of the new transatlantic relationship between the European Union and the United States? Of course, our focus of this show is about Premier Li Keqiang's visit. However, this visit takes place within the context of the Trump era. Now let's take a closer look at the transatlantic relationship, which was first damaged by the Iraq War. You know, not Angela Merkel, but Gerhard Schröder and Jacques Chirac, two heads of the European countries, refused to support President Bush. This time around, do you think the European politicians start to cultivate a growing sense of being more independent, as Charles said wisely?
I agree with you, Charles. I think transatlantic relations is now in a very crucial moment. In the past 70 years following the end of the Second World War, this is a very new. Because the European Union, European countries started from now, they thought They started to think, United States is no longer reliable partner. That is very important, that is very important in their relations because, the other side of the transatlantic no longer trust United States, which has been their, very important allies since the end of the Second World War. So how Europeans will respond to Trump's election, that is important. We need to follow closely. What I'm thinking about is, on the one hand, they will, strengthen their unity, which means European integration will become vital, not just because of Brexit, UK leaving the European Union, not just because of Putin. Putin is also regarded as a threat by European countries. Now it's a threat from Trump. Trump forced the European countries to get together. That's one thing. Second, I think, presumably they will try to, improve their relations with the neighborhood, even including Russia. Chancellor Merkel actually mentioned countries like Russia is important because,
Are you saying that the economic sanctions are likely to be lifted by the Europeans?
Not
without having a solution to Crimea?
No, not yet. But they will think about, one way or the other to improve relations with Moscow. Thirdly, I agree with Charles, China is going to become more important.
But what will be the opportunities for China during the absence of the United States from the European Union?
Okay, I think, we have more common interests now. We used to have a lot of cooperations in the trade, economic areas, but Europe and China started thinking about more issues like global governance, issues dealing with global challenges. Climate change is one important issue between China and Europe.
But I'm afraid you draw us a rosy picture a little bit too early. For example, this bilateral relationship between the European Union and China is actually challenged by the following factors. A, human rights. B, IPR violations. Third, trade protectionism and arms embargo, which was imposed in 1989. What do you think of these major hurdles that get in the way?
During this trip, Premier Li Keqiang visited Germany and after that going to the European Union. I think this trip will focus on three levels of issues. The first level will be bilateral issues between China and Germany. We have economic frictions, there are a lot of problems, but the main turn, I think, is cooperation. That is no problem. Second level is China-European Union, because Germany is going to be very important inside the European Union. So a good relations between China, Berlin, Beijing, Berlin is very important for China and Brussels. And thirdly is dealing with the global issues. But you are right, we have problems between China and Germany as a whole, with European Union. Human rights is it's an old issue. Arms embargo is also an old issue. I don't expect one visit or in a short period of time this will go. No. But we have more opportunities to exploit. For example, Belt and Road Forum has shown European countries has interest within China.
Well, I'm afraid those who are skeptical about the bilateral relationship between the European Union and China would not take the Belt and Road Initiative very seriously. They say this is just the official rhetoric, based on the fact or assumption that the European Union still refuses to grant China the economic market economy status.
Yes.
That's a major problem, isn't it? We entered into the WTO in the year 2001, and yet the European Union, the United States, and other major players still refuse to give us what we want, the market economy status.
These things will change. I think the attitude of the Europeans had been influenced seriously by the Americans on the market status issue, along with arms embargo and others. As they move further away from the US and become more independent, which will inevitably take place because the interests of the two sides are beginning to diverge. The fact that the US started the Iraq war and the Afghanistani war and so on and so forth, and leading to all the refugees coming to Europe, These are things which are beginning to impact Europe in a very serious way. So I think the two sides are going to move away based on very fundamental issues between the US and Europe, and that will leave Europe to be less pressurable by the US. Now, there's another very important aspect. I think the changes in the global economy, the status of China from, for example, a capital importer to a capital exporter. That's a major, major transformation. It hasn't really sunk in with a lot of people yet. And secondly, the impact of the Chinese market. Take, for example, very simply, we have now 130 million Chinese tourists who traveled abroad. Total amount of spending is 261 billion US dollars. Total amount of travelers out of the US spent 100 billion, less than half of what the Chinese spenders or tourists are spending. These things are impacting Europe in a big way. You have now China UnionPay in every shop in Paris, aside from Paris or most European
shops. Yes, indeed, the growing army of the middle class in China or has developed a deep sense of European lifestyle. Visiting their coffee shops, buying their luxuries.
That's right.
Wine.
And visiting, and wine and cigars,
yeah,
and
wine,
so
cigars,
on.
and so on and so forth. Let me cross over to Dr. Chen Han, Co-Chief Executive Officer of the China-Europe International Exchange. He's on satellite, and he's going to talk to us about his thoughts on the relationship between Germany and China. Individually, these two economies are the powerhouses for Asia and Europe, European Union, for example. Now, Mr. Chen, what do you think of the major opportunities and problems between Germany and China? What do you think Premier Li Keqiang is going to offer China a solution?
The China Europe International Exchange, the joint venture exchange between Shanghai Stock Exchange, Deutsche Börse Group, and the China Financial Futures Exchange. And the establishment of SINEX is one of the important achievements of the first Sino-German high-level financial dialogue in 2015. So now we are part of the financial cooperation between China and Germany, and I think with the closer cooperation between China and Germany, and the financial cooperation China-Europe International Chain can play more important role.
Excuse me, Mr. Chen, you sound a little bit empty. What are the specific issues concerning what you call financial cooperation between the two major economies? For example, do you foresee greater internationalization of the RMB after we have been listed as one of the major reserve currencies in the SDI basket of IMF?
We are a new market established in Frankfurt just 1.5 years ago, and our mission is to become a centralized trading platform for China-related and RMB-denominated financial products in Europe. And our products are the China-related ETFs and RMB bonds, and we are continuing to prepare to launch more financial products. And during the process, I think if we can introduce more attractive financial products, this will encourage the international investor to buy and trade the China and RMB products here in Europe, and this will enhance the function of RMB as an international investment currency, and then support and promote the RMB internationalization. Of course, as you talk about, the RMB has been included into the SDR currency basket, and this has pushed the RMB become an important part of the international monetary system. And the international investors will continue to enrich their investment portfolio by including more and more China-related and RMB-denominated financial products. That's the trend in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll get back to you in a few minutes. Mr. Feng, is that a kind of a common practice by the German media to undergo crusade against the United States, China, and perhaps the UK following the Brexit?
Well, I think this relations between US and Germany UK and Germany will have certain impact on our relationship between China and Germany. But in terms of ideology differences, this influence will stay.
I've attended
stay for a long time.
Excuse me, Mr. Feng. I've attended some closed-door deliberations about the major issues between China and the European Union. First and foremost, Europeans would always ask me, Yang Rui, what's wrong with your human rights? Now, I feel a little bit embarrassed as if China has made no remarkable progress in this regard. They've been bashing China time and again. Why do you think the Germans have been so ideological, so politicizing the relationship?
Let me tell you my own experience. I think it becomes less, the experience you had. No, especially after the 2008 financial crisis, but it still is the case. The point is, we have talked many times before, you only remember, knowing little about real China. That is one thing. You think this is a globalized world. A lot of Germans travel.
But they seem to know a lot more about Tibet.
They only want to know some negative, information. That's the one thing. Prejudice. They think
prejudice and pride and prejudice.
Yes. And also, I think they do deeply think their system is the right one. This is very deep.
But do we have any post-truth or alternative truth about what Germans think theirs is perfect, ours is bad?
I think there is really a lack of understanding because if you look at European press, first of all, the number of German speakers in China are not that many, and there's been a lot more promotion of Chinese circumstances and situation and culture and economy and trading and so on with the UK and the US, much more than directly through Germany, because I remember the days many years ago, 30, 40 years ago, when many Chinese were studying German, and those who studied German were engineers and scientists, and very few were actually into culture, into economics, and so on and so forth. The real issue with that, I don't think the situation is as bad as you might describe it,
well,
because
what's going on between Germany and China could actually remind me of what happened during the Clinton administration. President Clinton was able to separate human rights from the MFN, most favored trading nation status, laying the groundwork for a surge in the bilateral trade. Now, do you think the Germans would do much the same and follow suit?
I think if you look at the German political situation with the number of political parties, including a very powerful Green Party, basically for environmental protection, there are those who are fixated on specific things. And they are a political force that does have to be taken into account by the government. But generally speaking, overall, the fact that German, hopefully with the support of the French, will lead a revival or further deeper integration of the European Union, of the countries of the European Union. And it is absolutely critical for them to become more involved with China, and this is how they're moving. There's no question. Even small countries like Denmark, for example, last month the Prime Minister visited China and signed all kinds of agricultural product cooperation. So these European countries now have to look beyond their own borders. The small and medium-sized companies in Europe, all over Europe, including the Mittelstand in Germany, the small, medium-sized companies, have to look at where growth is. Otherwise, it's very difficult for them to survive. And China is the market.
Thank you so much. You are watching Dialogue with Charles Liu, Feng ZHONGPING, and Chen Han. We're discussing major issues on the agenda between Premier Li Keqiang and Angela Merkel, his German counterpart. This is the first official visit by Premier Li Keqiang during the Trump era, and that makes a lot more differences. We'll be back in a short while. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Let me go to Chen Han for his comment on the alleged Franco-German axis following the Brexit. Mr. Tan, what do you make of the prospects? Because France is said to be pretty weak economically, and yet Germany will have to reconsider a closer alliance with Paris so that regional integration of the European Union will be strengthened.
I remember that Premier Li Keqiang once made a presentation 2 years ago in Brussels in the EU-China Business Summit. And he pointed out through the financial cooperation to enhance the integration of the common interests between China and Europe. And I think Germany is very powerful in the manufacturing industry. And there are advanced manufacturing industry clusters in Germany. And Germany is famous for the big names, including the Siemens, Daimler-Benz, and Volkswagen. In addition to these big names, there are also around 1,000 hidden champions, which are also very important in the manufacturing industry production chain. So China is a strategically significant and important market for Germany. For China, after many years' development, China has set up its own comprehensive manufacturing industry system. And more Chinese enterprises are following the strategy of going out to expand their international business, including in Europe. So I think the connection between the Made in China 2025 and German Industry 4.0 will create and bring new opportunities for the cooperation between China and Germany in the manufacturing area. At the joint venture capital market platform in Frankfurt, China-Europe International CHEN is inviting the best quality Chinese enterprises, especially from the manufacturing industry, to issue shares and list shares in European market. We named this whole new market D shares because D means Deutschland, German. So we welcome the Chinese enterprise to issue and list D shares in Frankfurt in China-Europe International CHEN. By the construction of the new market, new D shares market in Frankfurt, in European market, we hope that we can help the Chinese enterprise not only to raise money, but also to promote the branding and also to improve the credibility, transparency, and the visibility in European market. By doing so, we hope to help the Chinese enterprise to better cooperate with the German as well as the European manufacturing partners. So I think this will be a win-win strategy for both China and Germany.
Let's take a closer look at one case. Let's do a case study. China is accused of exporting steel to the European Union. It's an alleged attempt by China to export our overcapacity in the iron and steel industry, and therefore a third economy or market has been cited by the European Union to condemn China, to bash China, saying we are dumping our overcapacity.
Well, I actually, more than steel, there are many other products. 3 years ago, it was tires to the United States, and last year it was steel and solar panels.
And I remember in the immediate aftermath of China's entry into the WTO, when textiles were being phased out, textiles quotas were being phased out, a Chinese shoe shop was set ablaze in Spain. And I was interviewing the ambassador of Spain, and he was quite embarrassed about this issue. Therefore, China's cheap products started to inundate the European market.
But ultimately, if you talk about a free trading system, it means the highest efficiency. There would be the highest efficiency in the flow of goods. And in the flow of goods, which means a big supply chain, which means many issues and factors, whatever is cheaper is cheaper. because the thing about the steel factor is really not an issue of whether or not China is dumping its excess capacity. It's complaints about subsidies by the government. Subsidies by the government in terms of supposedly cheap loans and so on and so forth. Now, every country in one way or another is helping certain sectors of its economy. The EU's subsidy for its agricultural products, or the US as well. There are certain sectors, because of political reasons, they need to subsidize or support. Is that transferring its overcapacity abroad? No, it's not considered that. It's what, as you said, it's really a political issue. It's an issue that is unfair, how the Chinese government or Chinese market is being treated. But I think those issues will come about, will be resolved in a positive way, because increasingly the Europeans are recognizing China as a market rather than just a place of cheap labor. And if you have such a significant and important market, if you continue to dump very negative views on that market, it would not do well for your companies.
Well, many European leaders have felt quite inspired by the policy speech of Mr. Xi Jinping in Davos in the winter,
right.
When President Trump was considering deglobalization. Now, a question before we wrap up this very interesting discussion for you, ZHONGPING. It seems there are far more similarities between Germany and China than between Washington and Beijing concerning, for example, why Germans tend to have a lot of savings in the bank. Their manufacturing industry is one of the most powerful, and yet they still enjoy the high-tech development. And China seems to enjoy more benefits from the high-tech transfer from Germany than from the United States, which tends to cite national security as a reason to bar acquisition, merger, or purchase of high-tech firms in the United States. Why do you think Germany always, along with other European economies, tend to adopt a more reconciliatory gesture instead of turning to dichotomy confrontational approach to bash China?
Well, one thing is, we are far away, you say. Secondly, I think, China and US are, a lot of people consider it strategic competitors. Germany and the whole European Union, European countries do not consider China as a strategic competitor. They think China is an economic competitor, and more and more they consider it also a cooperator. So that's why it makes China-European relations different from China-US relations.
Well, of course, we should conduct yet another dialogue to discuss why Germans have a lot of savings in the bank. Something that the United States got to learn. With that, we'll come to the end of this edition of Dialogue, considering Premier Li Keqiang's current visit to Germany. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.